Hey there, A-Share Spacers. Leanne here today, and we have a really interesting interview for you today on the A-Share Space interview series. I have my dear friend and guest, Rose Lounsbury, with us. Hey, Rose, welcome to the interview.
Hi, Leanne. I'm happy to be here.
I'm happy you're here too. And Rose and I are actually going to interview each other. So you're going to get two for one today. This is going to be a little bit longer interview than some of the others, but it's because Rose is interviewing me and I'm interviewing Rose, and we are talking about all sorts of cool things. Now, let me tell you about Rose. Rose is a minimalism and simplicity coach. And when you hear her story, you'll know exactly why she became that. She's also a best-selling author, and she's a TEDx speaker. If you guys haven't seen her TEDx talk, I'm going to put a link to that in the bottom here because it's just so cool. I was so excited that you did that. So, Rose, welcome to the interview series.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Leanne.
I'm so happy that you're here too. So what I want to do is I kind of want to start off by you telling the people your story, because I think it's so fascinating about how you got started in this and what you do for people.
Absolutely. Well, the way that I got started as a minimalism and simplicity coach is a very personal journey for me. I am a mom. I have triplets, and so they are now 9 years old. And my journey, though, started when they were about 2 or 3 years old. I was teaching full-time, so my background is as an educator. So I was teaching middle school, full-time job. You come home, you've got 3 toddlers that you're taking care of. And so my life was really full, and it was full in a good way, but it was very exhausting, as anyone can imagine. And so at the end of the night, when I would get my kids in bed, finally, I've taught school all day. I've come home and take care of my kids all evening. I get them in bed, and all I wanted to do was relax, sit on my couch, drink some wine or some tea or something, and just have like an hour to myself where I'm not serving someone, right? And what I found was during that hour, all I did was pick up my stuff. All I was doing was dealing with the chaos that had happened in my house throughout the day. I'm putting away toys and shoes and sippy cups. And by the time I finally got my house to where I felt like I could fall asleep, it was time for me to go to bed. And so I never had any downtime or any free time to myself. And it started to really wear on me. It started to feel like I never felt relaxed in my home. I never felt at peace in my home. And I knew that that was a problem. I knew like home is supposed to be where you feel relaxed. You're supposed to feel calm. You're supposed to feel at peace. And I did not feel that way. And so I thought, well, I guess I just need to buy a bigger house. So I started actually looking at bigger houses, not realizing that, that's the same logic women use when they buy a bigger purse, right? Buy a bigger purse and suddenly all this stuff will fit. Then you buy a bigger purse and you keep going, right?
More in there, more, yes.
I know. And so we didn't buy a bigger house, but a friend of mine, I was talking to her about this problem I was having where I was just dealing with my stuff all the time. And she said, well, you should just be a minimalist. And I had no idea what that term meant. I imagined monks living in a cave somewhere, in Tibet with nothing. But I started, like who lives like that? I started reading some books and blogs on the subject and realized that it's just a philosophy or way of living that anyone can adopt to live with less stuff, thus less stress, thus more free time and time for yourself. And that was what I wanted, was that time for myself and that reduction of stress and anxiety. So I started just doing it. I didn't have a lot of free time, but in the weekends when my kids were napping or after work, when my kids went to bed, I would go through one area of my house and declutter as much as I could. And it started to really change my level of anxiety, the way that I felt inside. And I was so excited about how free I felt that I wanted to share it with people. So I started a blog of my own, sharing this with people. As a result of that, I ended up going into people's homes and helping them side by side doing this. I started coaching them one-on-one, which I still do a fair amount of that. And then I ended up writing a book about it. So during that time, I also decided I was going to leave the classroom and pursue it full time. So that's what I'm doing now. So I have online classes, and then I also ended up doing a TEDx talk this past year in Dayton, which is where I live, and that was so exciting. So it's kind of now become my calling to share this with other people, but it comes from a place of personally feeling the freedom, because when I could then at the end of the day, after working, taking care of my kids, at the end of the day, when I could sit on my couch and relax for an hour, that was priceless.
Yes.
It's like having my life back.
Mm-hmm.
I had my peace of mind back. And that is why I do this. It's not really for me about how your house looks.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how you feel
right.
in your home. And so that's why I do what I do, because I want to get people to the place where their home is the place they feel at peace. It is the place they feel most relaxed. And too many people, I think, live in homes that make them feel anxious. They feel anxiety. They don't feel relaxed. They're embarrassed. They're ashamed. And nobody should feel that way in their home. So that's why I do what I do. And that's how I came to be doing this for a living.
Mm-hmm. You know what? I think that's so cool. And one thing that I thought when I heard you say that so often, and I've actually heard a couple of other speakers that I've interviewed have had a similar story, in that when you have some major life change, often it's when children come into the mix, you have something cobbled together that works up to that point. But then when you put in this new element, it just all falls apart, and you realize it wasn't that cobbled together to begin with.
Yeah, and for me, that's definitely true. It was the children, plus I stayed home with them for 2 years after they were born, and it was when I went back to work full time with the children. So it was the going back to work, because I could handle the kids when I was home, because I was just in my house more. So I could handle the stuff more.
Right. But
once I was no longer in my house, 8 or 9 hours of the day, I'm not there. And then I come home and I have such a little time to manage all the things. That was when it started to really fall apart for me. But Leanne, I want to make sure that I'm interviewing you as well. So I want to know from you, explaining a little bit. I know people who have followed you know what you do, but probably some of these people watching don't know what you do. So if you could talk a little bit about what you do and why you do it.
Absolutely. So I started Let's Ace Your Space about a year ago, and I've always loved organization and decluttering. I don't call myself a minimalist. That being said, you can only wear one shirt at a time. So it's like I want just the amount of things that I need. I don't want too many of them. And I guess I had a couple of experiences throughout my life that really marked for me how detrimental clutter could be. I remember when I was in graduate school, one big thing that happened to me, I was dating this guy, and he was very meticulous. He his house, his car, everything was meticulous. I was anything but. I had every spare surface was just covered. I was in graduate school. I had a one bed. It was like a studio apartment, but I had these little folding doors that would close, so it would kind of separate the bedroom. And anytime he would come over, I knew he was coming over. It would just be I would put things under the bed. In the kitchen, I'd stuff things in the oven. In any drawer, in the closet, wherever I could stuff things to get them out of the way so that there was some semblance of order. And, I don't know why I didn't think why I thought this wouldn't work, why this wouldn't keep working. But, and it did work fine until one day it didn't. I was sick. I think I had some kind of the flu or something like that. I wasn't feeling well. And so he came over. It was very nice. He came over to bring me some chicken soup, and he popped by, and he walked in, and I could tell, Rose, by the look on his face that he was horrified. He's like, who is this person? I've never seen this house like that. He's very nice. He didn't say anything. He stayed for a while to make sure I was feeling better. Gave me the soup. But, and after that, I think we may have had one date, but I'm pretty sure that was the last date we ever had.
Wow.
And I realized that my clutter had cost me a relationship with somebody that I cared about. Now, was it just the clutter? Who knows? I'm sure there were other things, but I know the clutter was a big shock for him. And he was just like, no, I'm not going to deal with that. So I realized then that I had to kind of get a handle on it. So through a lot of trial and error, I got a handle on my clutter and was able to get my own clutter situated. Now, fast forward, I'd say maybe 20 years or so, and my parents, they lived for 40 years in this in a 3-bedroom ranch house. And they had this basement that had 40 years of accumulated stuff. And I was not living in the same city with them at the time. And I would come from vacations and I would say, all right, I'm going to clean this basement up. And I would go down ready to organize, straighten up the basement. And it was so much, it would just paralyze me. I'd just stop. I would sit on the steps and I would look around and I'd say, I can't do it. And I'd give up and I'd go, and I'd sit down there like a good 20 minutes, like thinking about where do I start? And so we did finally get that basement cleaned up. They didn't really know what to do with it either, and they were able to move into their dream house, but it stopped them from really doing what they wanted to do, because I know that they wanted to move into a different house and they felt like they couldn't do it until they were able to get the basement decluttered. And from that experience, I was able to kind of fine tune how I decluttered. And by actually looking at, like, taking a big place like a basement or a house or whatever that's cluttered and breaking it up into small parts and just focusing on one part at a time and keeping blinders on the other. So, I guess I kind of, my decluttering muscle and my system kind of developed over time. And then I retired from my day job at the end of 2017, and I knew that I really wanted to kind of do this full time. So that's how Let's Ace Your Space got started.
That is so interesting. I love this story about your parents, because I think if you've had that experience of helping someone who's moving, maybe they're downsizing to, maybe
Yes.
a condo or something like that. And that's often our parents that are going through that. I know I helped my parents downsize from the big house I grew up into a ranch home, a 2-bedroom ranch home. Mm-hmm. And that experience of seeing how difficult it is to go through a lifetime's worth of possessions, how overwhelming it is, not just for the people doing it, but for the people trying to help them, who are often their loved ones. It made me realize that I never want my kids to have to do that. Right? Like, I don't want to leave them with a burden of things that they have to sort through. My parents are still here, obviously, and luckily for them, they got the chance to do this in their lifetime. But
yes,
think about that often, that I don't want my kids to have to face, like you did, a whole basement of stuff or a whole attic of stuff, and that paralyzing feeling, because it's very paralyzing when there's just tons of stuff and you don't know where to begin.
Well, and I have a friend, she's my age, and I went to high school together, and she was telling me, she's like, my parents, they will not throw a thing away. She's actually one of my Let's Ace Your Space followers, and loves what I'm doing and stuff. And she's tried everything in the book, and they're like, no, you can just deal with it when we're gone. And she and her siblings are just like, oh Lord. And I've got another friend who that exactly happened when her husband's parents passed away. They ended up just putting everything into a storage unit. That's a whole nother discussion right there.
Yeah.
And they're having, thinking that they would go through it, and they're having trouble actually getting through it and being able to clear it and get it out. And so it's just really a difficult thing. So to be able to learn how to do it and to do it now while you're still alive and can get the benefit from it, and so that you don't pass it on to your children, is such a gift, I think.
It's absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So now, Rose, let me ask you, the name of this series is Ace Your Space, Clear the Clutter to Supercharge Your Year and Your Business. And the reason that I named it, the reason that I'm doing that is I'm focusing a little bit on entrepreneurs in this series, because I think entrepreneurs, they even have a more special relationship to clutter, because they've got goals and they've got a vision for what they want to do in the world and how they want to help people. And the clutter can even get more in the way of their vision. Plus, when you're an entrepreneur, as entrepreneurs, we have to manage our time differently than if you're working at a 9-to-5 job, and that kind of compounds it. But anyway, I kind of digressed a little bit there. I'm just wondering, what does Ace Your Space, or the title of this interview series, what does that mean to you?
Well, I was thinking about the term Ace Your Space, and to me, it's kind of about taking ownership of your space. Like the way that it's worded is very active, right? You are going to ace your space, because I think so often we are living as entrepreneurs, or just as anyone, you're living almost in like a reactive state to your stuff, right? You're living in your space and you're like, oh, I got to take care of this. I got to clean this up. I got to do this. I got to do this. And you're always reacting, like I was, trying to control the chaos in your environment. But when you ace your space, you are taking charge of it. You are telling your stuff what to do. And it's actually like a flip-flop in the relationship with your stuff. You're in charge of your stuff as opposed to the other way around. Your stuff is serving you. You are not serving your stuff. And so many of us live lives where we are serving our stuff. And I think when you take an active approach to it and you take control of the things in your life, you take control of the things that you're bringing in, you take control of what gets to stay, it's very empowering. And I think for entrepreneurs especially, that's important. I know, as an entrepreneur, if you are not in charge of your space, if you're not in charge of your schedule, especially, because I think space can deal with physical things, but also mental things, and especially time. That's another commodity that we have to take charge of. And if you don't take charge of your time will take charge of you. You'll be constantly putting out fires. You'll be at everyone's beck and call. You'll say yes to everything. Your email inbox will always have 1,000 emails in it. You'll never feel like you're caught up. But when you take charge of your schedule, the way you take charge of your space, you actually find that there's a lot of relaxation and a lot of calm. And I'm not sitting here saying that I'm perfect at this, and I don't want anyone to think that I am, because there are plenty of days where I'm like, where did my time go, right? Mm-hmm. But I think having control of my physical space helps me have control of my time space, because the two are inextricably linked. Because when you think about why I wanted to declutter my physical space, I did it so I could have time, right? I knew that the stuff in my physical space was robbing me of my time. And when I controlled my physical space by letting go of the excess, my time appeared. So the two are very linked, and I don't think people always get that. But when you're decluttering your physical space, it's because you want something else. You want peace of mind, so you want space in your brain, you want space in your schedule, and all of those things happen when you declutter the physical space. So I love the title of it, and I'm going to turn that question right back at you, because it is the name of the series. It is the name of your business. And I'm curious, Leanne, about what Ace Your Space means to you as the face behind the name.
I don't think I can do any better than what you did. I mean, that was like such a brilliant answer. And I was actually kind of thinking about a little bit about that this morning. And it's like, acing your space is actually kind of, like you said, having the control over your space rather than your space having control over you. And when I think of my space, I think of the mental space and the physical space. And I think of the clutter that can be in the mental space and the physical space. And I think of having a space that supports you, mental and physical, for going for your goals, for doing what you want to do in life, for spending your time the way you want to do it. And when I think of clutter, it's really anything that gets in the way in your space of you doing what you want to do with your life. So I think when you ace your space, you have the control, the clutter in your mind, in your finances, your time, digital, physical space. That clutter is not controlling you. You have the control over it, or you've aced it so that you really can get to spend your time the way you want to. And I was thinking about it. I think so much of it, you were so right saying that time and clutter are so interconnected. And I really think also that mentally, it's the mindset. The mental clutter almost sets us up. Well, it does. It sets us up for the physical clutter in our space. One of my other speakers mentioned, she said, whatever you have externally clutter, it mirrors internally. And I think she's absolutely right. And I'd almost would, kind of flip that and say, whatever you've got going on internally, when you can clear that up, you've cleared the path for being able to deal effectively with the external things in your life, be it, if you have financial issues, then you have financial clutter. I know that a lot of times the financial people I've talked to, they say that people are so afraid they don't know what's going on in their finances, so they don't even look. So it's like, they've got this clutter over here, so they don't even look. But it's like you clear that up and you're able to, you clear up in your mind whatever is stopping you from looking, and you take ownership, and you're able to do what you need to do with that. The same thing with physical clutter or clutter in your diet, or, all sorts of things like that. So that was kind of a convoluted, but to me, acing your space is all of your spaces, your mental and your physical spaces, and having your space in such a way that it supports you and allows you to do what you want to do in life.
I love that. I love that. That is so true. That idea, like when you mentioned the finances, how people are afraid to look at their finances because they don't want to know what's there. It made me think of you on the basement steps of your parents' house. Like you were afraid to go in and actually see what was down in that basement. And it physically paralyzed you. That fear paralyzed you from starting. And I think we can feel that paralysis in our finances. We can feel that paralysis in our digital clutter. We can feel that paralysis in our time, like actually taking ownership of our time, or in our diet, actually writing down what we're eating, like facing it and having to say, well, this is what I ate today. So it's that whole, and it's all mental, right? Everything affects us mentally. And I know you've probably read the studies that show how women, especially in cluttered environments, have higher cortisol levels. It's true that the physical space affects the mental space. And who knows if it's the mental space that affects the physical space, or the physical space affects the mental space. But I know personally, from personal experience and working with many clients and students, that when you clear the physical space, the mental space clears every time, every single time. Every client I've ever worked with, almost all of them say, I feel so much better when I leave. They're like, I feel so much better. And that's what it's about. It's how you feel. And it's so funny that just cleaning out a closet, or cleaning out a drawer, or taking one little corner and clearing it up can open up that just little bit of space in your mind and in your psyche. And it's an amazing thing.
Well, you made a good point there, and I just forgot what I was going to. Okay, so maybe I need to get some clutter out of my brain. But it was so good. I can't remember what it said, but it's like
it'll come to you.
It's so true that we get afraid to face this stuff, but the thing of it is, it's just. I think it's because we put judgments on things. Like we think we're bad and wrong because of this, or bad and wrong because of because we don't have our finances handled, or we don't have our clutter handled, or, we have all these clothes in our closet that we don't wear. But the fact of it is, there's no right or wrong. There's no judgment. There's just what you have now. And maybe, is it supporting you, and what you want to have? And the first step to getting from where you are to where you want to be is actually really acknowledging where you are and not being afraid to look at it. And that's true with any kind of clutter, I think.
Absolutely.
So I think that's what I was going to say.
No, I think it's true. I love that. I think it's very true. It's that's why one of the first things that I have people do is we walk through their home and look at, okay, I want them to envision in their mind what they want to see.
Yes.
Right? You have to kind of have that vision of what you want. And so you know where you're going, because what you're seeing right now is not what you want usually. And so I say, okay, picture what you want. And we actually write that down, what the vision is.
Right.
And then we work toward that. And that's the truth in any type of life change. You have to have the vision of where you're going.
Yes.
In your finances, where do you want to be? In your relationships, where do you want to be? In your business, where do you want to be? And you work toward the vision, because wherever you are right now is not sending you the message that you want. So you got to create the message in your mind of what you want, and then you just keep moving toward that one little tiny step at a time, and you'll get there. Absolutely.
Now I remember what I was going to say, so thank you. But it's like it's you know, you were talking about the mindset, and like I said, like you mentioned before, like visualizing where you want to go. I really do think that a mindset and a mindset shift is so important. And I think it can sometimes come either way. Sometimes when you start clearing up it's like, fake it till you make it. When you start clearing up the clutter and you begin to see differences that it makes and see things opening up, your mindset will start to shift. Sometimes you work on the mindset and your mindset shifts, and that allows you to, really attack the clutter and really ace your space or clear the clutter. So I think that, it doesn't always happen the same way with people. I think sometimes it's one or the other, but I think that there is always some mindset shift that occurs. And I think that if a mindset shift does not occur, you might get decluttered, but you're going to end up right back where you are.
Yes, that's why early on I had people who would want me to come to their house and just do it for them. Yeah. Like, oh, just do whatever you want. And sometimes I kind of would because they wanted me to, but It never felt right to me because I didn't realize at the time, but what it was I wanted them to go through the transformation, right? And if I do it for them, I know that in 3 or 4 months, it's going to be exactly where it was because they didn't go through the transformation. They wanted that after, and so they got it and they were happy, but they didn't learn the skills or go through some of that mental processing that it takes when you actually make a life change. Because for me, minimalism especially is a lifestyle. It's not about how my house looks. It's about how I live, how I approach things, the way I think, the way I shop, the way I spend my time, the things I value. It's about all of those things. And so if you just try to stay on that surface level of, oh, I want the before and after, and look how great it looks, and it looks like Pinterest, and yay, that's not what it's about. It's about a deep internal change, and it's about kind of getting you to where you want to be in life and like opening up to all of the possibilities that are meant for you. And I know, like I said, for me, doing this opened up so many things that I didn't even know I wanted. Like I didn't realize that I would ever want to own my own business. I'd always thought of writing a book, but I just didn't think, oh, I can't really do that. I'm too busy. I'm a teacher. I have 3 kids. I can't do that. I never thought I would do a TED Talk. That was not something that was ever in my periphery. But then when I cleared the physical space, it was like, boom, look at this land that you could, look at all this that you could do. The possibilities opened up. And I honestly don't know if it was a mental shift first or a physical shift first, like you're talking about. But I think either way it happens. And if the mental shift doesn't happen, that's why it doesn't work to have someone else do this for you. It just doesn't work. It'll look really pretty for a short time, but it won't change you. And like that's what's really cool about this process is it will change you in an amazing, it'll transform you in an amazing way.
Yes. Well, actually now there are 2 points that I thought of while we were talking about this. One, you kind of answered one of my questions. That my next question, I'll get to that in a second. But, actually, I think and then the other thing is like, I love looking at Pinterest and Instagram and looking at what professional organizers do. I think it's just stunning. And I'm interviewing a 1 or 2 professional organizers on this program, and I think they are lovely and what they do is lovely. And I think that probably a more effective way to even work with a professional organizer is like you go through your stuff first, and if you get yourself decluttered so that you know that you really take ownership and love and all this, the things, they spark joy. This is a little Peeps thing that cleans my glasses. It sparks joy, it will say. And then you can bring in a professional organizer to actually help you organize your space to work better for you. That to me is, I think, a really great way to work with a professional organizer. But I'm afraid, like if you just, like you said, if you have somebody come in and say, all right, just clean it up and do it for me. Well, first of all, most of them I don't think are most of them who really know what they're doing are not going to be throwing your stuff away. You've got to make decisions. And then you're going to have a huge stack of decisions to make really quickly. And you don't have time to actually think about and process. And you may either you won't let enough go, or you let too much go, or, it's like, that's why I think that it can be tricky when you just have to say, just come in and do my stuff. And then the next thing, I was going to say, a lot of times, it's my thing, it's my idea when there is clutter, any kind of clutter, it really does take up physical and mental bandwidth, and it distracts you. And when you clean it up, things are available to you that you didn't even know. And like you said, you had no idea you would be doing what you were doing. With some of the other people that you've worked with, what kind of things have shown up and opened up for them out of actually getting the clutter cleared and, becoming, getting to a state of minimalism that works for them?
One of the big things that a lot of my clients have had happen, or my online students, is that they are suddenly able to have people over at their house. And it's not that they were hoarders, that term hoarder is thrown around quite a bit, probably not correctly, but their house was in a state where they didn't feel comfortable having people over for whatever reason, right? They didn't feel comfortable. And so for a lot of people, I remember one of my earliest clients, how excited she was. She actually, I think, cried and said, my daughter can finally have friends over for a sleepover. That's huge, right?
Yeah.
Her daughter can have friends over for a sleepover for the very first time, right? I mean, that's a life change. That's a change for her. As a mom, like, think of how probably embarrassed and ashamed and guilty she felt that her daughter couldn't have friends over, or she felt as if she couldn't have friends over. And then for the daughter, probably similar, really negative feelings of like shame and all of these things. And suddenly we can have people over. So not only do you get to have that sociability, but you get to feel proud of your home and where you live. And that is a transformation. And I've had more than one client and student in my online courses say, we had people over and it was great. And so that's a huge transformation. I've also had students say, they enjoyed the holidays for the first time.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, holidays can feel very stressful, especially if you have a home that has a lot of stuff and it's cluttered and you feel anxious in the home. And then the holidays, people are blessing you with presents and you don't feel like you know where to put them. You don't know what to do with them. They make they add anxiety to your life, which is not the point of presents at all.
Right.
So I've had quite a few people say, I enjoyed the holidays for the first time, where I was totally happy with my kids getting presents from their grandparents for the first time, instead of getting presents and feeling, all anxious about it.
Where's this going? Right. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So those are a few of the transformations that I have seen. And I've worked with actually quite a few entrepreneurs and business owners in their offices with their paperwork. And a lot of them have said to me, oh my gosh, before I went to that meeting, I could find the paper that I needed to take with me. Right? They're like, I know exactly where all of my papers are. I know how to find them. I know what to do with them. I know where, if the office starts to get cluttered, I know how to get it back to where everything works really well. So instituting processes for business owners and entrepreneurs makes a huge difference, because I think a lot of them feel, they feel kind of like that imposter syndrome. Like like people think they have it all together, but they know I
kind of do too. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too a lot of times. But they feel like, well, I don't know, people think I've got it all together, but I don't, because all my papers are a mess. I don't know where my tax forms are. I don't know where to put this. Everything's just on my desk, and I'm just like putting out fires all day. And then when I help them and teach them how to actually organize paper. So this is organizing, right? How to minimize the amount of paper clutter, but organize it in a way that works. It's like light bulbs going off, and they just feel so much more in control of their business. And they can serve their clients better from that perspective, from that feeling of, I do have things together. I do know when I bring home those notes from that client meeting, I know where to put them, and I know how to get them back after I put them there. That is power.
Right.
So
and that's the thing. It's like when you're an entrepreneur and you don't know where your papers are, and you're putting out fires and you're stressed out because you're looking for this, that, and the other, you are using up your creative and all your mental energy on that. You can't you can't really drive your business forward and go towards the goals that you have for your business when you're in this place of, running around in circles, putting out fires.
Absolutely. So how about you, Leanne? How about I know you teach a lot of online courses, things that you have mentored. What are some of the things that you have seen open up for your students through your programs?
Well, I'm remembering one woman that I worked with, and we worked on her. She had a few places that she wanted to work on in her home, and we looked at it and decided that the closet, her closet and her getting her clothes fixed up would make the biggest difference. And she had clothes in like 3 different closets and all over the house, and a lot of them didn't serve her, and she didn't know what was where. And she tried several times. She was kind of like, she would try and clear it up when her husband wasn't there. Like, she'd pull it all out and start working on it, but didn't know what she was doing. And then it would just get more cluttered. And then her husband would come home and she'd toss it back in. And we were actually able to come up with a system for her where she was able to get all the clothes down to, get it in one closet, and it was clothes that she knew looked good on her and served her. And she said that, before she would pass by the closet and she would just cringe. She wouldn't want to look in it. And afterwards, she just would stand and smile in her closet because she was so happy. And she was able to get out of the house quicker. She felt more confident because she knew that whatever she had in there, whatever she put on, looked good on her. And as a result, she had other places in the house to clean up. She started getting those other places that she had identified, plus even other places cleaned up. And she said that the white space was so addicting. And she even, she said her husband, she said he was pretty Spartan next to her anyway, but even he started, caught the decluttering bug and everything. And then I had another person that I worked with in the program. Papers were her downfall. And she said she would order stuff and put it in the pile and then forget it and find it later when she couldn't send it back. And so she lost a lot of money that way. And her big win was her goddaughter was getting married, and she was participating in the wedding, and she ordered a bunch of stuff for the wedding from Amazon. Some of it they used, some of it they didn't use, but she had control of her papers and her system, so she was able to send that back. And she sent about $1,000 worth of stuff back. And she said, if I hadn't been able to do this, I would have just lost that money. So for her, she's finding, and it's a huge money savings for her. So time, enjoyment of white spaces, money, another friend kept her closet, or her she took my clutter bug course. Her office was. She kept thinking she needed to clean up her office and her papers, and she'd go in there and try and just wouldn't make progress, and go in there and try and shouldn't make progress. And she was so frustrated. But we actually worked, we determined that she needed to be not starting there. She started in her bedroom and master bathroom, got those cleaned up, and then went on to another space like her laundry area. And she was able to keep making progress until she finally did get to that area. And she just feels happy, being able to know where her things are.
It's so interesting you mentioned the financial aspect of it. I didn't think this until you started talking, but every time I've helped a client with paperwork, every single time they find money. Every time.
Yes.
I once had a guy find a check for $5,000 that he had not cashed. And I was like, well, I guess you paid for me.
Yeah.
Session was worth it. Or gift cards. People find hundreds of dollars.
Yes.
Gift cards. People find just straight up cash. That is, hundreds of dollars of cash that has just been buried in piles. So, financially decluttering, especially your paper, is a really beneficial thing, because you find not just to mention the time and the peace of mind, but sometimes you do find money, which is great.
Absolutely. Well, and that again goes back to, if you're not looking at something and you don't know what's there, you're afraid of the bad. You're afraid of what you term the bad stuff. but there are good things there that you're not seeing as well.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. So now let me ask you, Rose, when people decide that they want to minimalize or declutter, what kind of pitfalls can they run into?
Well, some of them are things that we've kind of mentioned. One that I see a lot is perfectionism. Perfectionism is a huge paralyzer. So people think, oh, like you in the basement, right? I have to do all of this. It has to be perfect. I have to declutter everything. And so they get really overwhelmed and they don't even start because they think that they have to do it all. It would be kind of like if you wanted to get in shape and you thought the only way to get in shape was to run a marathon. And so you think about running 26 miles and you've never even ran 1 mile and like, well, I'll never be able to run 26 miles, so I'm not even going to run one. Okay.
Right.
That's one of those things. It's like it has to be so perfect. And I think a lot of that is, looking at Pinterest too much or looking on Instagram too much.
Yes.
And thinking, or looking at Better Homes and Gardens magazine and thinking that this is what it needs to be. No, it needs to just be better, one step better than what you have now. So if that means you have 5 minutes and you just go through your sock drawer and get rid of all the socks that you don't like or that are droopy or mismatched, and you do that in 5 minutes, you've made progress.
Yes.
Right? I tell people all the time, this is a process,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you climb a mountain, you don't look at where you have to go, look at where you've come. As long as you're moving up the mountain, you're getting closer to where you want to go. And then the second thing that I see a lot, and this was what you mentioned with your friend or student who was starting in her office, a lot of times people try to start with the hard stuff first.
Yes.
And you should never start with the hardest thing. So a lot of times in presentations and speeches that I give, people will say, well, my grandma gave me, and I see it in their eyes, the anxiety as they're asking the question, my grandma gave me all her china and it's in the attic and I just don't know. And I'm like, don't start with grandma's china.
Yeah.
Grandma's china's got a whole lifetime's worth of emotions wrapped up in it for you.
Yes.
Don't start there.
Yeah.
Start in maybe your bathroom with your beauty products or with your clothing if clothing is not emotional for you. If clothing is emotional for you, don't start there, right? Start with your children's toys or the kitchen, the coffee mugs, something. Start somewhere easy. Because when you start with the hard thing, you're going to get overwhelmed. It's going to be too difficult. It would be like if you tried to run the marathon, without working out first, and you're going to fail. And you're going to be like, well, this isn't for me. This whole decluttering minimalism thing isn't for me. I tried. No,
exactly.
More than you can chew. So those would be a couple of the pitfalls that I see. But how about you? What are some of the pitfalls that you have seen with your students?
Well, you know what? I think that that's absolutely a similar thing. It's like you need to, well, first of all, when you decide that you're going to declutter, don't just jump in and start on something. Take a second to step back and really look at your space and plan where you're going to start. And again, don't start with the hard stuff because you build up a muscle as you're decluttering, and it's you exercise it and you get there. And I guess, again, the perfectionism, it's like not all or nothing. Don't like pull everything out and then start working on it, because what's going to happen is you're going to get like maybe a quarter, a third, you may even get halfway through, but you're already going to be mentally and physically tired, but everything's out and a huge mess. And odds are you're going to say, I can't do this. And you're going to stuff it back in, and it's going to be worse than it was before. And so those are the two things I would say, take it in small pieces and, be cognizant of where you start. Don't start with the hard stuff first.
Absolutely. How about some of the tips that you would have for someone who, just wants to get started? What are some things that you think people should do if they're totally new to this? They're like, I want to do this. Maybe I've tried in the past and I failed. I'm nervous. What's something I can do? What's a tip to get them started?
So one thing that I always have my people do is like when you've got a space to declutter, there's two things going on. There's like spaces that you need to get decluttered, and then there's the process of keeping things decluttered. And I have people do like a little daily declutter, like a daily sweep. Start with make sure you're processing your mail every time you come in. Do a little sweep, get stuff back in the kitchen, hang your clothes up, get into the habit of doing those things. And that's kind of easy. And then, survey your spaces and pick one space to start on. Make it an easier space, not the one that has grandma's china in it. But also make it a space that will be impactful for you. Like that woman that had sleepovers, or like people who entertain. If you want to have people over for dinner, maybe start with your dining room and get that cleaned up. So start with one place and put on the blinders. Don't worry about the other spaces when you're starting. And you can always kind of, I love like the games like you did at Christmas, like, the 12 days of declutter, or 12 days of.
12 days of giveaways, but you were giving away stuff every day.
Where find somebody, follow Rose, follow me, follow different people online. They'll have like little games, and start on that and make it fun. Also maybe have a playlist of music that you listen to just when you're decluttering that you really love. And so just, make it fun and put some positive associations with it.
I love that. I wish that people had written like really catchy pop songs about decluttering. That would be great. It like makes me want to make my own playlist. Like
exactly.
Maybe Lady Gaga can make a song about decluttering. We'll see.
Maybe she can. I think we need to get on that, Rose, and see what we can do. So, and what are your tips for decluttering?
Well, one of the big ones, because I get asked a lot about, people say, well, it's my husband's stuff or my kids' stuff. And I always say, one of my top tips is start with your own stuff.
Right.
Do not. So a big mistake people sometimes make is they want to dig in, and they, instead of dealing with their things, they want to make everybody else deal with their stuff. And I'm like, that does not work, right? Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to be nagged into a minimalist lifestyle. They're going to dig their heels in. They're going to cling to their stuff. Plus, if you have a lot of stuff of your own that you haven't dealt with, it's very hypocritical to go to your children and complain about their room being a mess when your room is a mess, or the dining room is a mess. Like your kids, no matter how old they are, they can see that, right? Mm-hmm. So I always tell people, you want to be, like Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Yes. I tell people, be the change you wish to see in your house.
Yes, I love that.
Your stuff. So in my own life, when I started this process, I remember the day that I decluttered the bedside tables, and I decluttered mine. But then my husband's was on the other side of the bed. And it was like I had to sit on my hands to not touch it.
Yes.
But I knew that I couldn't, right? I'm like, that's his stuff. It felt so weird to just do one side. But I did my side. But I'll tell you what I did. I took a picture of his, and I didn't tell him. I just took a little picture of it. And I kid you not, a week later, he cleaned it up without me.
I love that.
A word. And his mom was visiting, and I heard him say something to her. So I didn't tell him what I was doing, really. I was just doing this. Yes. I heard him say to her, Rose is cleaning up everything in this house, and I don't want to look like a slob. So it's like my example spoke louder than my words.
Right.
And so I tell people that, and I've seen it with clients, with students, deal with your own stuff. Do not touch your spouse's things. I really say don't touch your children's things, especially if they're over the age of 5. Don't touch your children's things until you've dealt with your things. And then invite your family in. And often when they see you doing this, it just naturally starts to happen. So that would be one of my top tips, along with, like you had said, starting somewhere easy, somewhere where you have jurisdiction and control, and you are not really emotionally attached to them.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, now one thing that I have told people as well, when they said the same thing with their husband and kids and stuff, I think that it's what would you think about this? Is it fair to like declare like maybe the family room or the kitchen, the foyer is like, these are, I guess like clean areas. You can do whatever you want with your stuff in your room, but these, the family areas we need to keep clean. Yeah.
When it comes to shared spaces,
yes.
If they're a shared space, I say they are shared. Thus, it's not respectful for anybody to just plop all of their stuff down in a shared space. However, I think in a family space that's shared, it's also respectful that everyone has a designated space in that space for their things.
Good point.
In my living room, there are toys. but there are bins for the toys, and the kids know which toys go in the bins and they put them away. It's not respectful for them to just sprawl all the toys out. But it's also, we're a family living a family life, and my children are an important part of my living room. And so I need there to be a space for their work. I consider like their play is their work. So right now in my living room, honestly, if you went downstairs right now, there's a huge fort in my living room. There are blankets and forts and Pokemon things, and they are just like having a blast on this snow day down there. And if I told them they couldn't do that, I feel like I wouldn't be living a real life.
Right.
But it's not that those things get to stay there, right? When we're done with the fort, we're going to put everything back because that's respectful in a shared space. But right now, the way that space is shared is my children are turning it into an awesome fort. So I think in a family, you need to have that ebb and flow. Right. And if I just said, well, the living room it has to be clean all the time.
Yes.
I'm kind of saying this is my space and you guys don't have a say.
Right.
But I think when you have shared spaces, you find respectable amounts of space that everyone can control. So like my husband used to just sprawl like his wallet, his keys, his cell phone, his sunglasses, his hats, like kind of everywhere. And so one of the things I did when I decluttered was I gave him a box, and I have a box as well. And that box like fits on a shelf, and that's for his wallet, his keys, his random stuff, business cards, receipts. When I find his randomness around the house, I just scoop it up and I put it in his box.
Perfect.
And I can't see it, but it's a container that is his, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying this all has to be out of here, but it can be here, but it needs to still be respectful that everyone else wants to use this space as well.
Shared space.
That's sort of how I navigate it with my own family, and then how I navigate it with my clients, which is making sure that there is space for everyone, but that it's a respectful space that's not infringing on anyone else's right to enjoy the space the way they need to as well. Perfect.
I love that. That's such a great answer. So now I think that we both actually have gifts for the audience. So Rose, tell us about your gift, what you have for the audience.
So when you said we have gifts, I immediately thought, well, I'm going to give everyone like a coffee mug with my logo. No, of course not. These are not clutter gifts, folks.
Exactly.
These are real gifts. This is a real gift. So the gift that I have for the people watching is a minimalism starter guide. And what it is, it's a really simple 3-page guide that will get you started. Because one thing that I see a lot is people are paralyzed by getting started. And so you print it off, and it guides you through how to go through your home and make a plan. Because where you should start is different than where I should start, or where Leanne should start, or where your neighbor should start. It's a very personal thing. And so I guide you through the thought process, and I have you answer questions and rate certain areas on how you feel. And you create your own checklist that you can then use to go through and declutter your home. So it's a guide to get you started and get you past the overwhelm and get a picture of where you are, so you can actually start the process at the place that makes the most sense for you as an individual. So it's called the Minimalism Starter Guide, and I think we're going to link to it below. Yes,
I love that. Yeah, there's going to be a link down below this video to Rose's gift and also to my gift and what I'm providing. I found that a lot of the people that I work with, some of these like storage spaces like the closet and the pantry can often be problem areas. So I have the Let's Say Share Space Closet Manifesto and the Let's Say Share Space Pantry Manifesto. And what it's going to give you guys, it's going to give you a formula that you can kind of do a refresh on your closet. It's not a whole closet decluttering, but it's a refresh, and it will actually take your closet further along, make it much easier for you to find your clothes and stuff. And the same thing with your pantry. It's a pantry refresh. I've also got some really great hacks in there that are going to, once you've done the refresh, you can employ these hacks. It's going to make your pantry and your closet work better. And I've got a lot of my favorite quotes and tips to help really get you along the journey, get you excited to tackle that closet and that pantry. And like I said, the link for both of these are going to be down below. Now, Rose, do you have before we leave, do you have any final thoughts for the audience?
I think my final thought would just be to know that this is something you can do, right? If you're living a life right now where you feel anxious and stressed in your home,
Right.
I just want people to know that you do not have to live that way. And I know that from a personal perspective, and I've seen that countless times in my clients and my students, that it is possible for you to live a life where you feel at peace in your home and you feel in control of the things in your home. So I just like to give people that hope to know that this is a way that you can live.
Right.
It's a very livable lifestyle. I live this lifestyle with a husband and 3 kids in a 1,500 square foot house. Okay? You can do it. And I did this when I was working full time and I had 3 toddlers. No matter what your life situation is, you can do this. All right? So get past the excuses and start believing in yourself, and you're going to get there, and the rewards are just immense, and it is so, 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 so worth it.
I love that.
How about you? What words do you want to leave us with?
Yes. So the words that I would leave you with are, oftentimes when people get started on a decluttering project, they're really excited and they're gung-ho to begin with. But then somewhere along the process, it gets boring, it gets exhausting, you're kind of slogging through. So my final word is to, when you want to start a decluttering project, I want you to really spend some time. Rose mentioned actually thinking about how you would use the space in the future, but think about why you're doing this, how you want to use the space, what you want in your life, why, what the clutter is getting in the way of for you. And keep that in mind. As a matter of fact, even write it on a little Post-it note and stick it around, so that when you're kind of in the midst of decluttering your space and you get, you're losing your momentum, you look to that and you know what it is that you're going for. And that will keep you going. So that would be my final word there.
I love that. Connecting to the why and the vision. That's so important.
Exactly. You know what, Rose? I've had such a good time with this today. I think this was so fun, you and I interviewing each other. So, and I think, audience, I hope that you enjoy this just as much as Rose and I did. So this is, like I said, this is a little longer interview. This is your double interview today. But come back tomorrow for some more great Ace Your Space interviews. And thank you, Rose, for being a part of the interview series. And audience, thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye-bye. Bye.